baby, hello, nakupenda sana. Hello mama, hello, wapi baby, mapenzi tamu. Hello, nakutaka sana. Oh mama, oh mama.
Thank you, Sana, for joining us for another classic episode of the Wicked Edition. I'm your host, Dr. Kingori. We have a great show lined up for you. Our guest for this episode is a lady whose dream come true was getting a job at the city mortuary. Manze, tuanze na guest wetu wa leo hata uwezi mwambia vile umemkufia. Now, yeah, she is the first female police surgeon in Kenya whose expertise has been instrumental in solving some very high-profile cases in the country, including the unfortunate killing of human rights lawyer Willy Kimani, his client Josephat Mwenda, and their taxi driver Joseph Moiruri. Evidence yenye walipeana mazee ilikuwa very crucial in nailing the fifth suspect. Dr. Kizzie Shako is in the house. Asante. Thank you. Thank you, Maze. We'll be talking to her in a bit, but first, should we start with the good news or the weird news? Yeah. Sawa basi. Senior government officials were this week locked out of State House for arriving late for the signing of performance contracts by members of the executive. Maze, life haikuangi fair saa ingine. CS ameitwa State House, amechelewa na signature moja, na baba juzi ameokota over 10 million signatures. Na anaambia hiyo bado haitoshi kuingia State House. Among the latecomers was Trade CS Moses Kuria. Na for the first time alikuwa cornered na akakosa hata comeback.
Tukufukulia ndugu yangu umefukulia wengine. Mimi naitwa Mheshimiwa Moses Kuria.
Shout out to Mwalimu Charles on TikTok for kutengeneza hiyo meme, imeingia timely kabisa. And for your story ya kuchelewa, the president was not happy.
We have a job because we have a contract. If you cannot keep time, your employer, you have basically dismissed yourself. I mean, it's just as simple as that. So, for those who came late, who are members of the executive, I will be expecting a written explanation, and it should not include matters of traffic, on why they do not take these performance contracts seriously.
Exactly. President Ruto hapendi mtu anachelewa kuingia State House. Haters wanasema that's probably why he has refused to meet Baba. Now, the president has demanded a written explanation from the officials who he did not name, among them cabinet secretaries. Interestingly, Kenyans are also waiting to see who will write the joining minutes gani zinaandika. And I can't wait to see whether the Minister of Interior will defend himself. That is CS Kindiki. But Saju alifungiwa nje, see, that makes him the CS exterior. Now, Thank you. And the president reprimanding senior government officials shows admirable levels of seriousness. But please tell me I'm not the only one who feels nostalgic about this whole incident. In this sense, like, sisi, every time mzai wetu alikuwa ataka kutukula viboko juu ya makosa, I always remember, and I know this is a shared experience, I always remember how our mother used to set the stage na fitina.
Niona watu wale wamechelewa, nikaona rais unanini ninamjua. Nikaona uso yake nikajua hapa kimeumana. Sababu leo ni siku ya performance contract. Ile siku muhimu sana ya kuja kuweka. Na wewe umefika pale, rais amekaa. Tayari amekaa na ndiye rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Wewe umechelewa ukiwa kuona nani? Who else have you gone to see? These are things myself I don't understand. As I said, mimi sielewi. Mimi mambo ingine sielewi. So mimi boss nachunga kazi yangu. Unajua rais, tangu uniteue, I've been late in your meeting one day only. Na rais, wewe ndio ulinichanganya siku hiyo. Because ulisema utatoka hapa saa 1:30 tukutane airport saa 2, ukatoka saa 12:30. Sasa by the time nimefika nikakuta umeketi. And I was embarrassed because where else was I when my boss is seated waiting?
Alafu unajua problem, Rigijindi aliongea before president, so alichemsha hiyo asira kabisa. Anyway, speaking of punishments, police in Kianjokoma, that is in Embu County, shout out M-Town, my county, place niligrow, the police in Kianjokoma are handling a bizarre case of a mother biting the fingers of 2 teachers and 2 students at ACK Kerigi Primary. Hii lazima ingefika kwa news. Mzazi amekula mwalimu. The parent had been summoned to school after the son failed to complete an assignment they had been given in class. Wakaanza kuvurugana, she got hungry, and that's how she ended up biting the teachers. That's how she ended up kuuma hizo vidole za walimu. In short, hakuna kitu uma mwalimu kama mzazi ya support, ana support mtoto afanye homework. Now, tough being a teacher by the way. Mwanafunzi anakukula akili, alafu mzazi anakuja anakukula vidole. That's messed up. Now, word is that the 4 people were treated at the Kianjokoma Level 3 hospital with their bites, as in hizo vidonda za kuuma nini vidole on their fingers. 4 people, 2 teachers and 2 students. This is where history inanipoteza. How does one person bite the fingers of 4 people? As in, akiuma vidole za mse wa kwanza, where are these other 3 people? Walikuja one by one ama walikuwa wote hapa? You understand? Because whichever way you think about it, wewe ukiona mtu wa kwanza ameumwa vidole, halafu mse wa pili ameumwa vidole, bado unapanga line uchukuliwe biometrics. Now moving on, MPs have approved a bill to pay village elders across the country a monthly allowance of 7,000 shillings. In total, hiyo pesa yote, in total wazee watakuwa nakula 4.6 billion shillings every year. Sounds like great news, lakini naona wazee wamechezwa. 4.6 billion is such a downgrade from the 10 billion walikuwa nakula when it was called kazi kwa vijana. On the flip side, this is great news for the youth who have been struggling with unemployment in this country. Inamaanisha opportunities are there. You just need to grow old. Patience, maze. In other news, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has announced that it will be sending 1,000 Kenyan police officers to assist with the rising insecurity in Haiti. It will be very interesting to hear the thoughts of the 1,000 police officers on whether it's an upgrade or a downgrade from guarding Mama Ngina Kenyatta. Now, elsewhere, a Ugandan magistrate has been arrested for disguising as a woman to sit for a bar exam for his girlfriend. Like magistrate alivaa kama dame ndio aende afanye mtihani kama msupa wake mwenye pia anaingia kwa judiciary. This must be one of the most open relationships nimewaisikia. Imagine a girlfriend pushing the boyfriend to cheat. A girlfriend pushing the boyfriend to cheat, hoping he will not get caught. History inaweza fanya mtu adhani madema wananga shida na mse wao akicheat. It's the people surrounding them, surrounding the boyfriend. And this magistrate was cheating for the success of the relationship. Mazi alafu msupa wako akupe opportunity ya kucheat hivyo ukose kuperform. Hey! We have a great show lined up for you. We trust that you're going to enjoy our conversation with the first female police surgeon in Kenya, Dr. Kizzie Shako. She's joining us on the other end of this short commercial break. Shikilia hapo tafadhali. See you in a bit.
Or text 2 Rivers to 22365.
Hey, Maze, welcome back to the Weekend Edition. I'm your host, Dr. Kingori. Our guest for this episode is a master in very many fields, but please allow me to introduce her with 2 of the main ones. She is a doctor, a medical doctor, and a forensic medical practitioner. Dr. Kizzie Shako is in the house. Thank you. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
We are so excited to have you. And for the conversation that we were looking for, we actually got more because of the experience ya vitu mob sana umesomea and vitu mob sana many of the things that you practice. And I'll start with forensic. I'm very curious, and so is our audience. When it comes to forensic, please correct me if I'm wrong. It's about you're trained to see beyond what the ordinary person can see with their eye.
Yes, that's an interesting way of putting it.
Yes.
So forensics is, it's a very broad area.
Yes.
And so the area that I specialize in is in forensic medicine. So that's forensics is about the application of science, including medicine, in matters that where a crime has taken place and facts need to be established.
Okay.
Yeah, that's basically what forensics is all about. So in forensic medicine, it would be applying the medical sciences
Yes.
to establish facts about a crime that has taken place, usually violent,
Okay.
which is when now you get victims or suspects are involved and they
Yes.
have sustained injuries
Okay.
or inflicted injuries.
Sawa sawa. And can you use your education for personal use? Like, for example, as an expert, can you use it to catch a cheating partner? Like, like, does it come with, if someone was cheating on you, you'd look at them like, babe, those are not your enzymes. Does it, as in, please correct me, can that, as in, can you have an application of that?
Oh my, so not quite.
Oh,
It's
I'm
usually,
overthinking.
yes, you're overthinking, but I have received requests by some women who suspect their spouses are you know, in affairs outside of the marriage, and
Yes.
they, you know, there's one who in particular who brought me here that she said was not hers, it wasn't the husband's, and she wanted me to investigate it. But we usually ordinarily work within a criminal setting, so it's the government during criminal investigations that would require our services. Rarely do we use our services in a private capacity unless it's training, maybe to teach in lectures, or to occasionally some victims will want to be seen privately outside of the government agencies, yes, but not to do with infidelity, no.
Wow. But just the idea that that would happen is interesting. I can now confidently advise if I have a friend who has issues in their relationship, someone cheating, umeona daktari?
Yes, why not?
Eh?
I will see them, why not?
Okay, interesting. Another interesting thing about your story is the initial. Like, you have a very long journey, and I hope we'll get to cover as much of that as possible. But one of the things that is celebrated, that even for the many interviews that you've done, that comes up is you are so excited to get a job in a mortuary.
Yes, I was.
Right?
Very.
Very. That's a strong statement. Sasa 20, City Mortuary of all places, you worked there.
Yes, I
for some
did.
time. So ulikuwa unafanya job mchana ama you had also uliingia night shift? Did you ever?
What happened was I was posted to the forensic and pathology services. Then it was forensics and diagnostic services under Ministry of Health.
Yes.
Part of our work is to conduct autopsies, which will take place in a mortuary. And City Mortuary is a government facility. And so I would work there every day. And yes, I was very excited to do that kind of work, because that's what I've wanted to do for a very long time, since I was a child. And no, we did not work at night. Working hours is 8 to 5. So between 8 and 5, you would find the mortuary open and autopsy services being conducted.
Thank you. Night shift ruled out.
No night
Let's
shifts.
come back to you're doing autopsies. It is you alone and a few people who have gone to be with the Lord. You are in that room alone. You have a very special kind of confidence in dealing with such an area that most people find sensitive.
Yes.
Never in your experience have you ever had things moving that your heart stopped?
So we would, it's almost impossible to be alone in a mortuary. I would work under the supervision of my senior colleagues, pathologists.
Yes.
I am not a pathologist, but in Kenya, medical officers are allowed to conduct autopsies.
Okay.
And you also work with morticians who do the actual dissection and, you know, work around the mortuary. So you're not alone. There was a time I saw...
Yes. Niambie tu you want to
I
go
saw
to
a
moving.
hand, a hand moved, yes. But yeah, of course I freaked out, I panicked, and I was like, oh my God, what's happening? But I realized it's because of the way the body was positioned, and it was just slowly in motion until eventually, you know, gravity. And so the hand moved, but it was not, it wasn't spooky or some crazy story.
But for a moment, roho yako ilisikia.
Yes, I was terrified.
You were
for a
closer to
few
Jesus.
Yes, I was definitely closer to Jesus.
Wow. And I think you also introduced a very interesting concept. Yeah, there are different people who work in a morgue. For example, you have the pathologist, you have the morticians, you have the forensic medical professional like yourself. So when you mentioned the morticians, you're nafanya dissecting, so basically in the field of medicine, the morticians are just butchers.
Oh my gosh. No, oh
Yes.
gosh. They do a lot. They handle the bodies, they clean them, they place them nicely in the cold rooms, they dress the bodies, and they also dissect, they embalm bodies. They're the ones who take care. You know how in a hospital you have nurses, for example, who are constantly with patients?
Yes.
In the mortuary, that's what morticians do.
Okay.
Yeah, they take care of that body nicely.
And for you, interaction in such a work environment, what do you think of life?
Life is delicate. When your life is very delicate, the fact that you're healthy is something to be very, very grateful for.
Yes.
The fact that you wake up every day and you have a roof over your head, you have a meal, you can work, you can interact with others, those are things to be very grateful for.
Okay.
Having family is something else to be grateful for. If you have a wife, spouse, children who are safe and sound, that's just, you really should be happy about that and consider yourself not lucky, but blessed to have everything in order. I also am more aware of, one of the things that was very shocking for me was how many people die from road traffic collisions. And, that really does, it upsets me a lot because I think some things are really avoidable if we just make sure that the systems in place to keep people safe are actually in place. So those are some of the areas that really bothered me. And of course, now violence against women and children. So there was a lot of that as well.
When you mention that some things are avoidable, right? So in that work environment, there are people you look at and say, oh, this could have been avoided, gone
too soon.
You don't conform to the concept of how you hata masaa yake haijafika. As in, there's hakuna hiyo.
Yeah, but sometimes in this field there's the medical, the science, and then there's the spiritual. Now you have to know when to separate them. Otherwise, you'll be stressed all the time.
Serious?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a time to look at things in a factual manner using science, and recognizing indeed that everyone has their time limit on earth.
Yes,
but there are times you look at situations where a person has died and it's just frustrating because this could possibly have been avoided. For example, a lot of the collisions we see on the roads are caused by no road signage, no lighting, poorly marked roads, a lot of hazards I see on the road, and you just wonder, why isn't this being taken care of? Because that means people will end up off the road. Even if we look at drivers, for example, do we take time to assess drivers? When you renew your license, do you go through any medical checkups or you just pay for it? Should there be medical checkups? Maybe this is someone who had a stroke and they may not be fit to drive, but they are driving a bus with 100 people in it. So those are some of the things that are really frustrating to see.
I spoke to Dr. Nelson Awori, who is a cardiothoracic surgeon, in a separate conversation. Shout out to him. And he told us, like in this country, there is a very thin line about laws, concerning laws on organ donations, because doctors have not necessarily defined what is death. In this regard, when has someone died? Is it when their heart stops or when their brain dies, right? So according to you, in your experience kwa forensic, at what point do you say huyu ameenda?
Well, it's interesting. In forensics, we usually deal with the aftermath, so they have been declared dead.
Kabisa.
Yes, then we come in, not before that happens. That would be done in a different setting altogether. But in my experience, in its entirety, it's when there's no heartbeat and certain other physiological features that you look for to determine that death has occurred.
That's interesting.
Yes.
So when you say when someone has been declared, has been handed over to you, so basically the heaven on earth, because that's where they are. So this person, in terms of medical, and you mentioned facts and spiritualism, right? what is the practicality of resurrection? Because tunasikianga huko watu wanaamkanga saa ingine.
I've also heard of that.
You've heard that,
Yes.
ndio? Exactly. Alafu pia they tell us that ukiamuka na mko na mortician peke yake, kuna nyundo ya kukurudisha mahali umetoka.
I don't know about that last part, but I think, you know, sometimes we have situations where the ideal setting is for any death investigation to involve a medical practitioner.
Yes.
Someone to declare that this person is dead. But it's not practical because we don't have enough medical personnel to be at every single place where a person is suspected to have died.
Yes, yes.
And
yes,
so
yes.
you'll have non-medics determining that this person is now dead. We will take them to the mortuary.
Yes.
I think sometimes whoever determined death has occurred may not have been sure about it because they are not trained to be sure.
Yes.
And so a person ends up in a mortuary because they were not actually dead, they were just unconscious or whatever it is. Yes, that's
Okay.
that's just my theory. I've not actually studied it. Yes, and I think it makes sense. You end up in a mortuary accidentally.
So there's a possibility of waking up.
Yes, you could wake
Ukiwa
up.
huko.
Yeah.
So during the time ulikuwa na wakuko, did you ever toy with the idea of mtu amke ukikata mwingine? Did you ever think of that? Like in that moment, what would you do? Madam, huku ni wapi?
No, that never happened.
Watu wanalala hivyo.
That never happened, and I never thought about it.
Serious?
And I would be terrified if that
I'm
happened.
very curious
Oh my
about your
goodness.
kind of courage because you are like, this is it. This is my... Before you discovered that you could be of greater service to people when they are alive, right?
Yes.
It was your area of passion. So how did you zone out all these other superstitions and the imaginations the ordinary folks have?
I didn't actually have those superstitions and
Not at all.
imaginations. No, I've never had that issue.
When you're presenting evidence in court,
Yeah.
you as an expert already know that someone is guilty based on the evidence you have.
Yeah.
Lakini this person, and I'm sure you've seen that, person is so fighting to be innocent, like kabisa kabisa. What is your feeling as an expert in terms of how human beings are? Does it mean that without forensic, we'll have a lot of criminals getting away with crimes that cannot be proven?
Yes. So the reason I was explaining the different fields of forensics is to say that, like for me, what I would do, I was mainly dealing with the living, especially during that case that you've mentioned. I
Yes.
would deal with the suspects and establish their ability to stand trial. Sometimes you collect swabs from them that will then be taken to the lab to cross-reference, you know, to see if it matches the any blood or, you know, any other kind of biological sample that was submitted from the crime scene or from the body. And there are times during those murder suspect assessments, the suspects would tell me, not in this particular case, but overall, most of them tell me what they've done. And they tell me exactly how they did it and where and when and, you know, details of the murder that they committed. But in court, they plead innocent. They say they are not guilty. And so that in itself is very frustrating because there's nothing I can do, really.
They make sure you earn your money.
Yeah,
an
there's
expert.
nothing I can do. I can't, anything they tell me about that incident, I cannot be used. And it also needs to be a confidential conversation.
What is it that you wish in your period of working with people who've been harmed or who've been in danger or who've undergone these harrowing experiences? What is it that you'd wish more people can know?
I would like people to know that it happens to everyone. It doesn't discriminate. So whatever class, socioeconomic status you are, people are suffering at all levels. That anyone who sustained this kind of assault should get appropriate help, should report. I know it comes with a lot of shame, especially for sexual offenses. or domestic violence where you have, you know, mostly it's the woman who's the victim, yeah? So
Yes,
many
yes, yes.
times there's a lot of shame in that kind of dynamic because reporting it is embarrassing, it's humiliating. Where do you start and what,
Yes,
what,
yes,
do you,
yes.
what do you do next when
Yes.
the abuser is in the same home that you're in? But I still think that everyone who goes through this should report it. To first start at a medical facility, get to a police station with a medical report, and seek counseling and psychotherapy, because traumatic incidents don't disappear. Trauma doesn't just vanish. It stays with you until you deal with it. And it just changes the way it appears. So at first you're scared, you're frozen, you can't eat, you can't sleep. With time, you start looking for drugs, you know, substances, alcohol, maybe sleeping pills, you know.
Okay.
And various other self-destructive behavioral changes can occur. So therapy is very, very important. And for those who are around a person who's encountered such a situation, they need to be, it would be good to either refer them to the right offices,
Okay.
to a psychotherapist, or to offer them, you know, support without victim blaming. There's a lot of victim blaming. Especially where there's intimate partner violence. You know, why are you still with him? What were you thinking? Why did you go back with him and he was drunk? You know, all those things. We should avoid that so that we can support them as much as possible.
Asante sana, Dr. Kizzie Shako. It's very good vibes. I wish this conversation can continue. Imeweza, si ndio? Wapi makofi ya doc? Asante sana.
Thank
Asante
you so
sana.
much for having me.
Karibu sana. And thank you for making time for us.
You're most welcome. Anytime.
Aya wazi. That's it for the weekend edition. See you next week. My name is Dr. Kingori.